Hey everybody, how you doing? All right, so what was I doing there? Real simple. I was just playing the notes or some notes from the A major scale, right? So we just finished a video where we explained, kind of went over the major scale, and we're going to stay in A because for continuity, because we used A as the example of the video. It was kind of like an intro to the major scale. So right now I want to sort of talk to you about how I approach learning scales and why you'd want to learn a scale and all that kind of stuff, okay? And really what a scale is, I guess. We'll touch base on all of that kind of stuff. But remember, as beginners, and that's what this approach is. This is a beginner's approach, all right? There's nothing fancy here. I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing that makes anything fancy is the skill level of the person playing it, okay? So we could play a scale like this, and it sounds like, well, a scale, right? Okay. But as you get better, as you practice, as your guitar foundation gets better, your skill level gets better, you'll be able to make those notes sound like a little more like that. And not that that was great, but it didn't really sound much like a scale. Like we could start making them into little riffs and melodies, because that's where riffs and melodies come from. They come from the notes of a particular scale. Most of the scales are very they're very similar. You just change some of the placements of the notes and you have a whole different scale, right? So there's quite a few scales out there that are very similar. Again, you don't need to know this as a beginner or an intermediate or to be a song-playing guitar player. You don't need to know this information, okay? It's like anything. What do you want to get out of it? And if you started at 55 or 60 years old or 70 years old or even 40 years old, hey, you got no time. I'm not going to dedicate my life to learning every pattern and note and all these fancy things, scales and practice everything until I'm Eddie Van Halen. I don't have the time. I have a job. I have a career. I've got a family. I've got things to do. This is just something we want to play some music with an instrument, right? So for that reason, I personally think you just really need one scale. If you want to go beyond playing chords and playing songs, if you want to kind of add a little spice to your playing, we talked about walk-ups and walk-downs. That's all that was, is a few notes from a scale placed between a couple of chords, right? Then it does help to learn a scale. Now, I use my octave scale, I call it, or my all-purpose scale, based on the 2 frets over and 2 strings down and little boxes and all that, okay? But I also have used and use the major scale. Now, some people swear by the pentatonic. I got to play the minor pentatonic, got to know the minor. You know what? Got to have the green M&Ms, got to eat the red M&Ms. The blue Smarties are better than the brown Smarties, or, whatever. A lot of it comes down to personal choice and also maybe the type of music that you're going to play. Certain scales probably best used for certain types of music, okay? I find the major scales kind of like jack of all trades scale. And, a lot of things are based, like a lot of other techniques that you're going to learn are based off the major scale. So it's a good scale to know, right? So what we did there is we just played a few notes. And that's going to lead into how you use scales. Now, you don't have to use the whole scale, right? So you don't have to sit there and your buddy's playing in the key of A. You don't have to sit there and go, okay, I'm going to play along. You don't have to do that, okay? You don't have to sit there and play every note 1 to 7 and then 8 to, you don't have to do that. You could just play 2 or 3 notes over and over again. You can make a little box of notes. You can make a little riff out of 3 or 4 notes. But it's going to come from the corresponding scale, right? In the key the chords are being played in. That way, your scale is going to sound okay, or your notes are going to sound okay. So again, let me explain that a step further. So if you remember the chord wheel, right? And we showed you, we put it on, say, C, and it showed all the chords in the C key, the C family. And then we played each chord in random, and they all sounded good together, no matter what order. Now, some orders are better than others, and that's why songs are written in certain chord orders or progressions, like 1-4-5, 1-6-3, that kind of stuff. You'll find because those chords sound a little better together than maybe the 1-3-7, okay? Same with the notes, right? So if someone is playing in the key of A, and they're playing chords from that family, I can confidently pick out some notes from the A major scale, and I'll sound okay. And some notes will sound terrific, but none of them will sound terrible. So I hope that helps, okay, as to, how we would use a scale. We can use one note from a scale, but it's important to use the proper note. And you get that information from knowing the scale. So that's the value in knowing a scale or scales, right? So what I do when I approach learning a scale, I first look at, like everybody, I look at the overall scale. It's usually a diagram somewhere in a book or whatever. And I look at the pattern, kind of try to, okay, yeah, so it's kind of, okay, it's sort of, the overall shape of where the notes are and all that. And of course, I got to learn them. We all have to learn them, So we have to sit there and, we have to sit there and go, right? Got to do it. That might take a day, a 2, 3. It might take a week. It all depends on where we're at with our playing. So once I'm at the point where I can sit down and play the scale forwards and backwards, okay, nothing fancy, no fancy, strumming techniques or picking pattern techniques or anything like that. Just play the scale. Once I can do that, right, then I start just overall trying to get a feel for the scale. Is there any little melodies that stick out in the scale? Like, for example, real quickly, when I started doing this one, I was hearing something. And in my mind, it was, oh, when the saints, oh, when the saints, oh, when the saints go marching in. Right? I don't know. It's what I heard, okay? So I like to sort of just get an overall feel for the scale. And then what I do is I look for patterns inside that scale. Right? So little boxes. You remember the videos about the 4-note boxes for beginners starting soloing and stuff like that? Where we made 4-note boxes off the root. So right off the bat, when I look at this scale, right, the A major, I see these are 4 notes from our scale, right? So I throw this one out, and I've just got this 4-note box here, okay? Now I'm going to zoom in and show you some of the other boxes in the scale. All right, so we're a little bit closer up here, and I want to show exactly, what I mean by that. Now, as you know from previous videos about getting you started with just, general soloing and putting little riffs together, we talked about little 4-note boxes that we made off the root, okay? So within the pattern of the A major, we're going to use the A major, but you can use this in any key. We have our 2 here, and then we go 1, 2, skip 1, and we're over here. So right off the bat, I see a little 4-note box. And And that's A, B, D, E, right? Because that's part of the scale. So now I know I got this here. There's my root, there's the B, there's the D, there's the E. Got a little box there. Now, if we go down to this string, which is the fourth string, right? Again, we have this note here, okay? And then instead of, like on this string, it's the note next to it, we skip. There's our 2, and then we go 1 up. So we have these 2 apart right here. And then the string under it is the exact same formation. Right? Exactly the same. So really we have another box. We have a box here. We have these 4 notes right here. Now, these notes are a little bit different because, well, this note here, right, is actually an F sharp, right? And we go to G and G sharp. So we have a G flat and an A flat, or an F sharp and a G sharp. Same notes, okay? And then right under it, same. So we have 4 notes right here. Now this one here, this note right here, this is your B note, right? There's your A, there's your B, okay? So this would be our C sharp or our D flat, okay? So we got these 4 right here, and we got these 4 right here. Right? And then, the way you saw me open this video, I just played the bottom notes, right? Right? So this is right here. Again, this is our G sharp or our A flat. There's our A, which is a root. And then right above it, right here, we have our E to the F sharp. Now, if we want to include the B note, which we do here, right? We go on this string, we go A to B. So we could do the same here. Now, if we do that, we actually have another box, right? We have 1, 2, and then we have these 2 notes right here, right? We slide in here, and we play these 2. These 2 notes right here are part of the scale, right? That's E and F sharp are part of the scale. So we have another 4-note box we can use. So we could play, right? And we can play, right? And we can play. And you can hear they're all melodic. They're all harmonic. Like they go together. Okay? So then we've got our little bits and pieces. So if you remember over here when we did our walk-ups, right? Well, we got the same thing here, right? We got those little 3 notes right there. Then, look at this. We have these notes here at the end of these strings. So if we go to the 5th string, right, we play the note right here, which is our C sharp or our D flat, slides into our D, and then 2 over would be our E, right? Because that's part of our box. That's part of our A, B, D, E box. So when we get down to this next string, right, we have these 2 notes together, and remember, these 2 strings are mirrored. They're exactly the same, right? But they're right next to each other. So really we got a little tight 4-note box we can go to at any time. Isn't that cool? Like it's just full of these little boxes, okay? So one of those is the octave, right? Because here's our A right here, and we go 2 down, 2 over. There's our octave A right there. See, then the scale starts over again. So from the top, A, B. There's your whole scale, the whole thing, right? 2 octaves, they would call that. So that's the way I look at scales. I look for those little boxes that I know without even thinking about it. If a song is playing in A, I know I can go. Or, you know, whatever I need to do or whatever the song or the progression dictates, whatever sounds best. Again, this is just the way I approach it. It's not a rule, it's not, you know, and that's the thing you have to understand, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, is it's whatever works for you, whatever makes things musical to you. And as long as you're playing your guitar, it doesn't matter how you get it done, as long as it sounds good to you. All right? So I hope this helps. Don't be afraid of scales. Use them for what they are. They're just another little arrow in your satchel, club in your bag, all right? And nothing to be afraid of. And again, if you don't want to go there, don't go there. You don't have to be a good, decent guitar player and play all kinds of songs, all right? So I hope this has helped. As always, if you like what you see here, hit the like. Come along for the ride, and I welcome any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you have, let me know, all right? I'll see you next time.